little bit of a Skype border at the top that's blocking some of the.
Sure.
But I think I can, you know.
Okay, so Sarah, you have this installed on your machine.
Yes.
This is just my kind of standard setup. Sorry, I'm waving my hands, and that's not going to help. But it's probably not how you're going to set it up to start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my configuration, and I'm going to load a configuration. You don't have to do anything right now.
Okay.
But in these configurations, I have things set up for various scenarios for different types of monitoring. And you're going to be doing impact driving, is that right?
Yes. Impact and vibratory.
Okay, well, let's start it up with the impact, which, so I have here impulse monitoring, because it's any impulsive sounds. And lo and behold, it looks almost identical. There's a few settings that have changed that you probably don't see. No, but you know what? Can you still see the screen?
Yes.
You can, okay, good. Because for some reason, my little red border has gone away, so I want to make sure that that's still there. I'm just going to just refresh it. Okay, the thing that changed up above is I went from post-processing now to recording mode, and that's what you'll use when you're recording the sounds. But just to start with, the reason I have it set up this way, I have a spectrogram on the top, and the reason for that is because it makes it easy to see impulsive sounds. And then I have a time series on the bottom, which is just your normal waveform. And the waveforms go by really fast. And so you might just see a blip go by and that's it. And with the spectrogram, you'll have several seconds where you can actually see strikes going on there. So just visually, it's nice to be able to read that. So let's see, the first thing we want to set up here is just the basic settings that you're going to need. And in order to do that, first I want to know, do you have the calibration page that Rezon sent to you?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And I'm going to grab, you know what I'm going to do? I have a different hydrophone here. You can't see it, but I'm going to just step out for just a minute and go grab a different hydrophone so that I have one that's like as close to identical as one you have to plug in here.
Okay.
Okay. So just 1 minute.
Sure.
Okay. I grabbed I was going to get a CR3, which is a little less sensitive, but I'm going to use a CR1 here. I just make it easier for me to demonstrate online. All right, so you have the software installed. You have your little USB license key plugged in. Is that correct? Okay. And you also have the Spectre DAC plugged in.
I do, and I've got the driver installed for that.
Okay, great. So first thing, let's just make sure that's all set up okay. So I'm going to go up to the options and then processing settings. And the shortcut for that is just pressing the F4 key on the keyboard. Okay. And the first thing we do is go all the way to the tab on the right, which is the I/O device. Okay, and so on yours, it should show this. It should show you have the Spectre DAC 200 connected for your input, and for output, it doesn't really matter because if you're playing the sounds back, you can even select your own audio device if it's an audio stream.
Okay.
So So you see, the most important thing is the input device inspector DAC.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to skip down to the next section where it says sound card driver mode. You want that on the ASIO mode, audio stream input output.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just important so that then something screwy doesn't happen with Windows where it takes over the gain settings or anything. It shouldn't. It's never done it on the standard mode, but with audio stream, it can't do it. So it's best to have it in that mode. Now, up here on input range, you are using the sensitivity on yours, I believe, is -211 approximately. Is that right?
Okay.
I have the Rezon sent me a copy of the document. So look on the page where it'll say it measures the sensitivity at 250 or 250 hertz.
And this should be on the paperwork that they sent?
On the paperwork they sent, yes. Well, anyway, we'll get that number when we go over to the calibration tab, but it should be roughly -211. So we're gonna set your input range right here to be ±10 volts to start with.
Okay.
What that means is that this DAC will be able to handle an input from the hydrophone of as much as ±10 volts.
Okay.
And that would be equivalent to about a 230 dB signal, which is huge.
Yeah.
What size piles are you going to be measuring?
I think it's 14-inch steel piles.
Okay.
And we're measuring for a peak of 206.
Yeah. And and that's at what distance? At 10 meters?
No, yeah, it's 10 meters.
At 10 meters. 2.6, which would be 216 at 1 meter. You know, I normally don't do this because with my hydrophones are a little bit more sensitive. I think in order to get your best signal, you're going to change this to be ±2.5 volts.
Okay.
Okay. So that's going to be roughly another 6, we'll just call it, just to make it easy, roughly another 6 dB. So that means that a signal of 217 dB would overload the system. So if you got anything that was louder than 217, it's going to clip. But since you're only interested if it's above 206, then that shouldn't matter. The only reason that I would go to the ±10 volts is if you needed to be able to say definitively how loud that signal was when it was above 206. So I'm kind of getting ahead of us right now, but I think that just in an hour or so, when we talked a little more about it, if you do need to do that, you can always change. If you see that things are overloading, you can change the setting to the ±10 volts.
Okay.
But you've got bigger issues then, because then you've got signals that are so loud that it's going to be killing fish and everything else around.
Right. Theoretically, we'll be shut down if that happens.
Yeah, right. and so it's really only if it's academic, that you need to know, well, how loud was that? Hopefully they're using some sort of mitigation on these piles too, like.
Well, so the studies that they have indicate that for the depth of water and the substrate and all of that, we shouldn't even approach the 206.
Okay.
So they're confident that we won't need the mitigation, but they have that in our permit. We have that obviously as a contingency if we start to approach that.
Mm-hmm. What is the estimate of the upper end?
I don't know that. I know that there was another threshold at 187, right, for impact to fish, I think, and
yeah,
we did buy some mitigation credit to be allowed to exceed that level.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know you could buy your way to exceed it.
So
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so they're allowed to go over the 187 now, but they're not allowed to exceed 206.
Okay. All right. Well, then this is the setting we're going to use then. Okay. So we use a plus or minus 5. That'll put your threshold, your maximum is around 217 or 218. So you'll measure your peak. You'll still be able to measure quieter stuff as well. Okay, so that's the only settings you need here. Now we're going to go back to the very first tab. Okay, and we're going to set your sample rate because you're only interested in audio range stuff. You don't really need ultrasonic, I'm imagining, for this project. So you can set your sample rate at 48 kilohertz. That's going to give you a 22 kilohertz bandwidth with the alias filter. So are you on that tab now?
Yes.
Okay. And yep, and your decimation ratio. Oh, by the way, is your recording feature working okay?
I believe it is. There's really no way to tell. It looks like it's counting though, so.
Okay, all right. Okay, the 48 kilohertz or 48,000 hertz. This is what matters for the recording. This decimation ratio and FFT size is really only for the analysis, but we'll just put it where I have it. So decimation ratio of 1, FFT size of 4096. That's only for spectral resolution. It really has nothing to do with the impact. It's just the way things display and how you would analyze the frequencies. So you want that set. You want your sampling format, the upper right corner here, to be at 24 bits.
24 bits.
Okay. You want your smoothing window to say Hanning. Again, this is only for post-processing analysis, so it doesn't matter, but it's good to have it set there to begin with. Okay. You're only doing single channel right now, so this should be the dual channel stereo should be grayed out. Because I'm sorry, I forgot to say select mono up in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, that's already selected.
Okay, yeah. So those next two boxes should be grayed out. And then in the averaging settings, this is a sound level meter, so you want to set it to sound level meter.
Got it.
And the type is exponential. It's just weighted. It means so the weighting is for the sounds that happen the most immediately, and so then it decays after that. So those are weighted heavier. This is standard setting for exponential. Again, it's not going to matter for the peak measurements. It will for the vibro. And then for here, you want the speed/blocks to say off. So this is saying it's not averaging anything actually, but it's still set up in the right mode. Because for impact, you need to get the instantaneous measures. Now the final box down here, input signal overload. You want to enable the detection, but you don't want to select the box that says exclude. So the first box is checked. The next box is not.
Okay.
Okay. Now we go over to scaling. That's your next tab. And again, this is more for display, but you want your amplitude axis to be logarithmic, because we're measuring in decibels. Otherwise, you'd either see the peaks and not the lower levels, or you'd see only the lower levels and never the peaks. So you want that logarithmic. Your frequency axis can be logarithmic. Again, this is for display for these impulses.
Okay.
When we do the vibration, we're going to change that to 1/3, but we're going to keep this on logarithmic. Okay. Power spectral density is not turned on. That's off. You don't need that. That's more for, again, detailed spectral analysis. And the spectrum rating should be flat on both of these. And then because your hydrophone has got such a flat frequency response, we don't need to put any microphone compensation in there. So that just stays blank. Okay. Now, and again, this is more academic, but it's still, you want to make sure it's set up this way, and then you just forget it. The next tab is calibration. So this one's important.
Okay.
Okay. The first box that you check is enable calibration.
Okay.
Okay. And then the little radio button, push button, was the far one to the right. Direct me to transducer sensitivity. So that should be selected. And then the next box on the left is transducer type, and that should be hydrophone.
Okay.
And this is where you put in the sensitivity. Let me find that. I think I stuck it in here just to make sure. I mean, you should, if you can't find it, I'm going to look for it here.
Yeah, hydrophone sensitivity. You said you thought it was -211, right?
It's, yeah, I should read 211 point something.
Yes, it says here under comments on the page that says hydrophone sensitivity, it says PHO at 250 hertz is -211.3 dB.
Okay, so you want to put in negative, you want to put in that value right here where it says sensitivity. Okay, so is that in?
Yeah.
Okay, so now further down, under display units, under linear, it should say pascals.
Mm-hmm.
And the box down below should be selected. It doesn't really matter whether you select RMS or peak here, but I usually choose RMS.
Okay.
Okay. But this is just for labeling the plots. So where it says linear pascals RMS, you want to delete where it says RMS.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise, it's going to display. It's going to say on your. There's a. Anyways, I've had a talk with the guy that has written the software, and I've forgotten to tell him not to put that in there. But I think that it's harder for him to not put it in one field than the other. But because what happens when you display the time series, it says pascals RMS, but in fact it's not RMS. It's actually the instantaneous measure. So there's no RMS there. So you can get rid of it there, but on the log, it should say RMS because that's what displays on your spectrogram setting.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, it's just a little nitpicking. But then I want to make sure you have it there in case you print if you print out these displays for something and somebody sees that says RMS, and then they might start questioning what the levels of the values are.
Okay.
Okay, so you just get rid of it there. And now on the right side where it says channel name, you can put in whatever you want. The right channel won't display, so it should default to just say left and right.
Right, that's correct.
So I like to put in the hydrophone name, or just what it is. So I say CR1 hydrophone. That's the one that I've got plugged in here right now. Okay. But for you, you're going to say TC4013 or something like that. Or you can have whatever you want. You can just say hydrophone, but that's what's going to display. And I'll move this down. See on the top of the spectrogram, it just says CR1 hydrophone here.
Okay, right.
So that's what it'll display there. So it's just for the display.
Okay. What's the significance of left and right? Is that input output?
Left channel, right channel. Because it's a 2-channel system. So you're only going to be using the left or the number 1 channel.
Oh, okay.
And so that's just, if you're displaying this in stereo, it's to differentiate between the 2 channels.
Okay.
Okay, so now the next thing you need to do is you need to save the calibration to file. Okay, so you click that, and it's going to go into this cal file, where I've got lots of different calibration files. And my typical nomenclature is to give it the name of the hydrophone. So I would call it a TC4013. I think it's a -1 is what yours is, right? Right. And then I usually put the serial number. You can do it how you want. I use an underscore and then serial number, whatever it happens to be. I don't know what your serial number is.
Yeah, I have it right here on the paperwork. 0.5, okay.
Okay. And then, because it used to be, but it really, the type of DAC that was using mattered. Now it doesn't, because you're doing directly the transducer sensitivity, or to the, it's using the DAC itself. So the internal calibration on the DAC is already calculated in here. But I still put it in for what I'm using it. I say then this is for the DAC 200. So then I know this is now set up for that. So that's the hydrophone and the DAC that's being used.
Okay. DAC 200. Right.
Right. And then I just click save. So now you've got that saved. And that way, if you get a different hydrophone and then you want to change, instead of having to re-enter all the information, when you come back to it, you just click load calibration, and then you go and you find your calibration file, which it should have saved it to the Spectrum Plus SC Cal folder. You just find it, you click on it, you open it, and it loads your calibration.
Okay.
I just put in a totally different one, so I got to put in the right one. Oh. Okay. So, and now I just put in the correct one, and of course, I still always have to get rid of that RMS where it says Pascals. And that's the only thing that it keeps sticking back in there. Okay, so that's your calibration. So I think I have mine, should be looking similar to how yours does. Okay. The other two tabs are not needed. The triggering is not needed, and the run control, you just want to make sure it says run continuously until stop button is pressed.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you can just click OK. All right. So that's the most complicated part of the whole setup.
Okay.
When you get a new hydrophone, you'll just change the calibration for that hydrophone.
Right.
Okay.
So now that we've done that, that's set and ready to use. We don't have to
Yeah.
do it again. Yeah. Okay. And is it set only for impact driving?
Yes, we're going to make a couple changes when we do vibration.
Okay.
So now you've got that set. The next thing you want to do is you want to change. I guess we could have done this first too. You want to change though what your display looks like.
Right. Yeah. And different from yours.
Yeah. So there you're going to go to plot, and you're going to just make sure you select time series and spectrogram. Okay. And however they display, they're going to be up there kind of, well, here, I'm going to get rid of them. Okay. Of course, mine go right back to where I had them originally.
Yeah.
Well, so click on window and then just tile horizontally. And whichever one is selected, whichever one you had was highlighted or on top, that'll show up on the top. And then you can just scale them however you want.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so tell me when you have those there.
Yep, I've got it.
Okay, good. Now we'll just change a couple things then before we get going. On the time series, the plot top, this is going to be in pascals. So 1,000 pascals is 180 dB. 10,000 is 200 dB. So we can put 10,000 in there. Oh, I'm sorry. This doesn't let me do that. There we go. I had too many in my decimal places there. And 206 would be 20,000 pascals. So we're going to make the plot top 20,000. Okay. Yeah. And I'm actually going to go through two different views here. One is Pascal, so it's going to look like what you're used to, and the other is going to be a logarithmic plot, which will be in decibels. But I just want to go through this first. Okay. And that's also because a lot of agencies they've asked for it in Pascals, not in decibels. So that's where I had my default. Okay, so we have that set. The other thing then is to go up to spectrogram, and your plot top there, you can change that to say 200. And that's going to be a color gradient, so if it's over 200, it's just going to be totally red. So it doesn't matter if it goes over it. And on your plot range, because we're using this is a 24-bit device, you can put your plot range at about 140 to start with.
Well, I put in 140.
What's that?
It won't let me.
Make sure that the zeros, how many zeros you have to the right of the decimal place. So delete them.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and the final thing, I should add you do first, was in the mode, you want to be in recorder mode.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, let's save the configuration because this way you can call this back up when you ever need to. So you go to config and save configuration and then give it a name. Oops. So whatever you want, I call it my impulse monitoring. I'm just doing this for my own. Let's call it Padre impulse test. But if you call it impulse monitoring or something like that,
okay,
then you can just call this right back up, and everything will be mostly set up how you want. You still want to go through and make sure that things like the little RMS didn't get added onto the Pascals, and just double check that all your settings are correct. But it gets you so that it should be as close as you would have had it before, which is a couple minor little tweaks. Okay, so I'm just going to do something now because now you got this set up. Plug in your hydrophone into the input L channel on the DAC.
okay. Ready?
And so if you were to start recording right now, if your hydrophone's in the water, everything's going, you just click the record button. And I'm just doing what I normally don't like doing, but I'm just tapping very gently on the hydrophone. And it's giving me these impulses. And they're actually going the wrong way in the time series because it's not how a real impulse would work with sound. So do you see that displaying?
No, mine's not doing anything.
Okay, you see mine?
I do see yours, yeah.
All right, so let's stop. Let's see what's going on with yours now.
Well, it says I'm getting an error here.
Okay, what is that?
Spectra Plus SD sound card edition failure, setting the Spectra DAC 200 input gain in IEPE. Make sure that no other applications are using the device. So,
okay, let's go back, press F4, go back to your I/O device. Do you have Enable IEPE selected?
oh, they're not working.
So yeah, you want to make sure those boxes are not selected.
Make sure what boxes are not selected? Oh.
Enable IEPE.
Okay, and that was under
I/O device.
okay, here we go. Yeah, no, those are not checked.
They're not. Okay, so click OK. And let's do one more thing here. So make sure that you're not recording. So click stop. And click on File and Close. It's going to tell you the WAV file has changed. Just select No. All right.
Hold on just a second.
What operating system are you running?
Windows 10.
Okay.
I know. I couldn't get one with 7.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're back to. It looks like I'm back to the same place.
Okay, so do you want to say File and then Close?
I already did.
Okay. Now what I'm going to have you do is close Spectra Plus. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. And now reopen it, because what it does is it saves also a configuration file that's your default, and so whenever you close it, it should reopen to the same that you just had. Okay. And I'm going to share mine again. Open it back up.
Yep. It automatically brought up the impulse monitoring, which is the one stage.
Okay. Okay, so mine should be back now too. You see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And that little drop-down menu at the top is how you change to a different configuration?
Yes, where it says, there's two. See, mine says Padre Impulse Test. You can change to anyone right there, as long as you haven't modified it. If you modified things, then you need to use the config load configuration.
From its original location, okay.
Yeah, right. Okay. So what I want you to do right now is let's just change modes to real time. Everything else should stay pretty much the same. In fact, my configuration still says, you see it still shows up here.
Yeah, where did you go to real time? Sorry, I was.
Mode.
Oh, mode real time, okay.
And then real time. Okay. I want to make sure that your DAC, now we've restarted, that it's running properly. So the hydrophone is still plugged in, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I normally do if I'm going out in the field or testing or anything. I first just go into real-time mode rather than recording, so I'm not wasting disk space.
Mm-hmm.
And I just click run. And it's the same thing. It's just not, it actually is recording in a little loop. You just don't know it. In fact, this is me. You didn't notice, but see, this is my voice just talking into the hydrophone.
Oh, okay.
So is yours running okay right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, pick up your hydrophone and talk, when you're talking to me, just put it right up close to your lips and talk into it.
Yeah, I can see that. It's picking up my voice too.
Okay, that's great. So you know it's working, right? That's a really good check that you got things plugged in right.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to simulate some pile driving spikes, which and stop. Okay. And of course, my spikes have gone the wrong direction because, again, it's not a water impulse. It's me pounding on the desk. Mm-hmm. But what you'll see here is you can see several of them, but when it was going by, it was kind of going by too fast. You didn't see them in time series. But now you can go ahead and highlight the time series. So this is not going to display the actual maximum peak level, the instantaneous peak from an impulse, because it can't display that in real time. It can calculate the sound pressure levels, but that's an averaged measurement because it has to take several samples in order to get that. And this 206 dB is based on the maximum peak level. So in order to do that, what I've recommended to everybody is that as soon as you're done monitoring one piling, you can go back and measure it right away to see if you've exceeded the limit or not. And in practical basis, everyone has said that that's worked fine, because you're not going to be able to, if somebody's in the middle of driving the pile, they're not going to stop. Mm-hmm. So you'll be stopping anything after that, but you won't stop mid strike or anything like that. So over in the time series, you can click the little middle box here to maximize that screen. Okay. It just makes it easy to view. That's all. Then you can click. And this shows up when the screen is smaller too. It's a little magnifying glass symbol. Yeah. For them. You click on that, and now it changes the cursor. So I'm not going to. This first one is an outlier. I'm going to ignore this big negative spike here. Okay. I'm going to just click and highlight these 8 strikes that I have here. I'm going to let go, and it just zooms up on them. This is just for a visual check. Okay. Okay. And again, because the way I'm doing this on my desk, everything is going negative instead of positive. But it doesn't matter. The pressure is still there. It's just a negative pressure. So this is a good way to just really quickly just click on your cursor on what looks like the top one, and you can measure over on the left and see what the maximum level was. So this is just a quick and dirty test. And I get minus 6,500 pascals.
Okay.
Which is less than 10,000, so it didn't exceed the limit, according to my quick little check here. But the display though is limited by the number of pixels on your screen. So, and this is sampling at 48,000 times a second. So there's a lot of data, even in one of these little impulses. So you may not, because of aliasing of the pixels of the screen, you may not see it. So this is just a quick check. It should display the maximum, and that's part of the algorithm, is that it weights that so that you can see these, so that you can see you see structure on here that may otherwise get hidden by the aliasing. You can zoom in on a single pulse. By the way, I'm showing you kind of the hard, complicated way first, but it's to kind of get you to have a feel for how this all looks. So now I just zoomed in on it. Okay. And it's still the same. Okay, what I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to go back out full. You just click the zoom out full button. Okay, I'm going to go back in on these 8. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to highlight these 8. Okay. That's using the little arrow cursor. So you click on that button, you get a little box. Now I'm going to highlight all of this. So you got that?
Yeah. So show me again how you highlight.
Yeah. So
that arrow right there.
This arrow right there. Yep. And then just click and drag and let go.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
And then right click. And you get this menu that pops down. There's a lot of choices here. Right near the bottom, there's export peak values to text file. Okay, so you select that. And now it tells you what your threshold is. So it needs to know, well, what is the peak? You know, where am I looking? So this is how you check to see if anything is above your threshold. Okay. So if you put in here 10,000 pascals, or if you put in here, no matter which one, you enter one and it changes changes it in dB. I can change the dB. I can say 206, and there's how many pascals? Almost 20,000. Okay.
Is that something you should set up before, or?
Nope, you do this in your this is something you do when you're going to check it. So this is the correct order to do it. You select the time series, and then you right click, you say export peak values, and then you choose what you want them to be. Okay. So I do 206. You set your peak detection, your hold off time. A quarter second should be enough. What that's saying is it doesn't want to double count anything, so it's looking for the maximum. But if something happens within a quarter second, it's gonna find that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then I click start, and it puts it, by the way, wherever you last saved something. That's one thing, but this was just added recently, so it doesn't have its own file folder. So, for instance, I would probably put it in the logging, because that's where data logging stuff goes. Now this file should be empty. So now it saves the file. Okay. I have to now go and find that file. I go to Spectrum Plus. Where is it? I go to log and peak test. I open it, and it's empty. Lo and behold, right? So we didn't exceed. Nothing was exceeded.
Okay.
But I want to show you what it looks like if there was something in there. So now I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to do the same thing. But this time, I'm going to say I want that at. So I'll do pascals. See, there was 5,000. So I'm going to say 3,000. Okay. And say start. And I'm just going to overwrite it. Okay. So now I've got a file that, and yours will have should have hundreds of peaks, or it could have nothing if it doesn't exceed it. I look at it, and there's all the peaks. Yeah. So it gives you the time. That's the time into the file. Okay. Not absolute time. It's the time into the file, and then it gives it to you both in pascals and in dB.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, you could set it at the 187, so you see if anything exceeded that, or you can set it.
Yeah, so that's what I was just thinking about for use, like practical use in the field, since we're not allowed to exceed 206. Mm-hmm. Set it for something slightly lower to know if we're approaching that threshold.
Yeah, I probably would. I would set it at 200 or something.
Okay.
Because then I guess, or even lower, you'd have a record of what all the impulses were. Because the nice thing about this is now once you have this is just an ASCII file. Now you can go ahead and put this into MATLAB or Excel or whatever, and just have a plot of what the level, the peak level of every single strike was.
Okay.
But yeah, that's up to how you want to report it.
Right. Okay.
So the thing is you've got this record here, and you can go back and do it anytime. This is done with the data that have been recorded.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? Now, another thing that you can do here, because I don't know if you need to monitor the sound exposure level, the SEL. And so to do that, what you do is select everything again, right-click, and compute SEL. And now I need to auto-scale it. So what I did is I highlighted everything. I'll go back here and do it again. Okay. So I'll highlight. Oops, I used the wrong thing. I'll zoom, sorry. I'll zoom in, highlight, right click, cumulative sound exposure level. And because it's on the same scaling, it doesn't show much because we're looking at Pascals, not dB. And so I'll auto scale it. And now this shows how the sound exposure level increases with every single strike.
Okay.
And you can click on it then and find out what that maximum level was at the end. I don't know, do you do to report SEL?
No, not for this project, but for future use.
Yeah.
That's to know because it's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I know a lot of agencies are asking for it. So that's usually always reported in dB, not in Pascals, but I know there's some Canadians that are reporting it in Pascals. So what we're going to do, I'll go out full again. And this button here with the arrows that go up and down,
Yeah.
that's the auto scale, which is a nice feature. So you can just get everything to fit nicely in the plot. Okay. What I'd like to do now is change this display so that it's in decibels. Okay. The box next to that, the auto scale, is the settings. It's the display options. So if you click that, and now you can change two things. One is pull the cursor to trace. And what that does is then wherever you click on the graph, the display, the readings over on the left and the right are going to be at the actual plot trace itself and not where your cursor is. So it makes the cursor always go to where the plot trace is. Okay. And then we're going to change this to energy. And click OK. Oh, and you can change your colors and all kinds of stuff and get fancy and use, if you want to have a blue trace or a green one or a gray background, you can do any of that. Okay. Now the scale's all screwed up, so you got to do auto scale again. You'll notice this looks a lot different now when it's in energy mode, which is in Pascals.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. What it does is it takes everything that was negative and makes it positive because it doesn't matter. It's a magnitude now. So all the really low level stuff still shows up. It's all the background noise is 130 dB just because of noise in the room and everything. But now when you click on here anywhere, the cursor goes down with the trace. So if I zoom out again on these 8 impulses, they look like that. Now you see more of the decay, kind of not quite logarithmic decay. But when I click on them, I can get to the peak, which is really hard to do because they're so narrow. It reads everything on the left in decibels. So I'm going to zoom in on just one of these guys. There. Now it's easier to find the actual peak. 193 dB.
Okay. It doesn't seem like my cursor is doing the cursor tree.
Then it's not following it at all?
Yeah, no, it's not.
So go back up to settings and make sure you have that pull cursor to trace selected.
Yeah. See what your other settings are there. Energy.
Yeah, so energy, plot top, we just auto scale. Start and stop is just the zooming in the time, so that shouldn't matter. and I just have show all these grid lines. I hope it's not some Windows 10 glitch. So you have it selected, right?
I do have it selected, yeah.
All right, well, let's just try this again. Let's click OK. It's not that critical because the cursor thing was really only as a quick and dirty look. But it is frustrating if it's not doing it.
Yeah, no, it's not. So I can see on the left and on the top where your cursor, wherever your cursor is, it's giving you values.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Is yours not even giving you the values?
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what I was doing wrong. You're clicking and moving.
Yes. Oh yeah. Sorry, you have to click and hold.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, the pages were scrolling over it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, not a glitch, greater error.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't. I can't show you what I'm doing with my hand here. So.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha now.
All right. So I'm going to now just look at these 8 again, and the whole reason I'm doing this is to show you that SEL again. So I will highlight them, right click, SEL, and now this is what you would expect because it's adding logarithmically. So whereas the other one, the steps are pretty much equal every time it went up by the same amount. Now it doesn't. It goes up, each one's a teeny bit more.
Right.
And so it goes up much more slowly over time. But this is what you would expect to see. And now with the full cursor to trace, click and hold, I can just go all the way out to the right because you want the cumulative sound exposure level. So this would be at the end of that, the very end of the file. You click and hold and drag over to the right, and there's your number. So in this case, it's almost 177 dB. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this was designed as a plot to display it. It doesn't do like the peak one where it actually saves it to a file. So here you have to actually make the plot and then click to get click and go all the way to the right, and then you have your maximum level. And then you can plot this out, and you've got a plot of the SEL as well as just some numbers. And I can go over we'll go over the plotting later on today.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that's I just minimize. I did minimize. I just put it back to its normal size. And this plot then, this SEL plot goes away as soon as you zoom out full, and then it goes back to its normal display.
Okay. So I have lost the spectrogram.
Okay, so that you hit this maximize, right?
Yeah.
And now if you go back down, go over to your plot where it says up in the menus, and which ones are selected. Okay, well then it's just hidden. So go to Window and the tile horizontally again.
Oh yeah, it keeps going back to the default. Okay.
And again, the whole reason we showed the spectrogram is so that when you're recording, you can see you've got the piles going.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't explain that I have this total power meter going, which is not. It's not going to help with the peak impulse. So I'm going to show us later for the vibration. Right now, I think maybe it'd be a good time to take just a little break, maybe for 5 minutes or something.
Sure.
I'm going to go grab some water, and so I'll be back here. How about 4 minutes? I'll be back here at 1:05. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the total time.
Yeah, 12:04.
12:04. Yeah. So, want to come back at 12:10?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. I'm just going to leave the channel open.
Okay.
All right.
Can anybody hear me? Patrick?
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Patrick.
Sorry, I'm at a coffee shop. Cody, I don't know if you can hear, but I don't know if he knew his video was on the whole time, so we see him like squinting into the screen, or at least I did.
Oh, okay. I think it's because of the screen sharing, but
Sorry about that.
No worries. I tried typing it, so there you go.
Is that better?
Now it's just a mug shot of you.
Oh, well, you should be seeing his screen though, right?
No, I see his screen. I'm on an iPad, and it's got like little icons in the bottom right corner.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like your full screen, but it was definitely had your video going. So it was like looking at you squinting into your phone.
Yeah.
But I got buses going by and everything, so it's probably loud if I have to keep my speaker on.
Yeah, I keep mine muted too.
Yep. So Sarah, you're recording this stuff as well?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of little details here, so I'm hoping we can go back through it.
Well, I'm the only one here at the moment, so I'm trying to not only follow along with the equipment, but also take notes, and I'm not doing a very good job of taking notes. So
yeah, I started trying to take notes just of the settings that we needed, and I think it should be simple enough once we get the settings right, but then manipulating the data and getting the display, that'll be a little tricky, it looks like.
Yeah, it's not quite as plug and play as some of the other games that we do. All right, well, I'm going to run out and use the restroom real quick.
Okay, thanks. Patrick's here.
Okay, hi Patrick. So before I go on then, Sarah, do you have any questions or does anybody else have any questions?
Not immediately. I think it's going to take playing around before I really have questions.
Yeah, I expect that it will. It's okay, I still have questions. I've been using this software for 2 decades. I mean, as it's been evolving.
So this is Cody. I just have one quick question. So as we're monitoring the pile driving, we're basically gonna start it right as they're starting, and then stopping it at each pile.
Yep.
So each monitoring of each pile is its own file, right?
Yeah, that's right. Most likely. It depends on how big of a file you want. And that's actually, I was going to get into some of the recording options next. So you can, because if you don't want the files to get too big, then what you can do is you can limit the file size.
And that would make sense because they may have time between each pile on setting up or moving the hammer or whatever. So just to keep file size limited, it might be better to do it that way, right?
Well, right. I mean, so but even within the pile, so if it's going to take them 15 minutes to do one pile, let's say, then I would just record the whole thing. If it's going to take them 30 minutes or longer, maybe an hour to do one, then you may want to break it up. If you do that, then you'll have to look at each file. That's simple enough to get your, so, finding your peaks. You just do one for each file, not a big deal. But if you want to measure the sound exposure level, then you're add one file to the next. And
that's right.
But in the past, people they've concatenated their files, made these huge, then they've made big files, and it's really kind of a pain, and it's processor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do, when I did this thing with the sound exposure level, if you do it in pascals, then you find the maximum for each file. So you go all the way to the right, like I did. Here, I'll just do it really quick. Oops, wrong. There we go. So I do that, and I do this. If I measure the value at the very end, just write that down. Mm-hmm. And then you do one for the next file, Those you can just add together. Not if they're in SPL, because then you have to do the anti-log, add them, and then take the log again. So just do everything in amplitude. Okay. So you do it this way, so it's in pascals. So now I have the number of pascals, and then I add all those up. And then when I'm done, I either have the total sound exposure level in pascals, but if the agency wants them in SPL, you just convert from pascals to SPL. And I'll make sure that you guys know the conversion factor on that. I don't know if do you already know the converting from pascals to sound exposure level, or to SPL in decibels? Sarah, you?
No.
Okay, then it's really simple. It's just 20 times the log of the pascals. 20 times the natural, the common logarithm. So what I can do it right here. So we say SPL in dB. SPL dB equals 20 times log of micropascals. So you got to convert them to micropascals. So I'll say of pascals times 10 to the 6th. All right. Okay, I just sent you a little equation there. For some reason, darn things. It used to be I used a little asterisk for the times because I didn't want to use the X, but now when I do that, it automatically converts everything to bold in Skype. Here. I'm going to edit my message. There. There we go. Okay. So it's 20 times the log of whatever your pressure in pascals is, times 10 to the 6, because it's supposed to be how many micropascals they are, because that's what the reference is, 1 micropascal. Okay. So you've got that. That's if you need to convert it. So which you may in the future. Okay. So back to screen sharing. There we go. Right. So, any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, then, since we were talking about that, let's now go to how we would set the recording. Okay. So, I'm going to now go to File and I/O options. I'll do that again. File, I/O options. Okay. So Sarah, you got yours open there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So file access settings. I typically say hard disk and make backup file because disk space is now is big and processors are fast. And that way, if you're working with a file in post-processing, there's a backup so that if something goes haywire, it's not going to destroy it. So you're working on the backup file. So you're working on a copy. This is important. You want to include the calibration data in the WAV file.
Okay.
Okay. That way, if you need to open it again on a different computer, it's got the calibration information there. Okay. And this is new thing that was just added. Include the timestamp in the WAV file. It's in there. I don't know if this apply timestamp to plots works yet. So this is it's here, but a couple versions ago it hadn't, and I haven't tested it again since because he's updated in the last few weeks. This one I always uncheck.
Okay.
Because if you don't have the file, if you've moved the file or something, then it might throw an error. So I never have that there. Down below here, enable data buffering. That's really good because that way, if you're in real-time mode, and you're monitoring something, but you didn't think things were going to start, and they do, it gives you can switch over to start recording, and it'll have saved the last. In my case, I have 60 seconds here. I think yours should default to 60 seconds also. You'll have 60 seconds of data that are saved that will be then saved as a WAV file.
Okay.
Okay. And now this is the recording size. The recording time in seconds, that's only if you're recording just to RAM or saving, accessing the file in RAM. So that should be grayed out. A single channel, well, let's see, you're 48 kilohertz, 24 bits. It's about 5 megabytes. Yeah, 100 megabytes is only going to get you about 6 minutes or so, or 5 minutes. So the default on yours probably says 2000.
think it was. I actually changed it, but let me cancel and go back.
Well, that's okay, because this is really up to you. I mean, the thing is, a 2 gigabyte file was just ridiculous 10 years ago, and that's still what things we default to. And I mean, I have some files in my old computers. While the software was analyzing things, it was so efficient, and while I was recording. But if I try to open like a 800 megabyte file or 500 megabyte file, it would just take forever to open those files.
Okay, yeah, it's default is 2000. Yeah,
and so by doing it that way, that's just because that used to be the maximum file size for Windows. The file sizes are actually a lot bigger. So if you were to set it to 2000, then you would be able to record the full pile driving of at least, let's see, it's 600, it's about 600 per hour stereo. So that's 16 bits, so 24 bits. Yeah, with that 2 gigabytes, you'd be able to record probably 2 hours continuously on one file. So again, if it's a long, I don't know if the 16-inch pile, it depends on what the bottom's like, how long they are.
Okay, so the other thing about the piles that they're driving, the 14-inch steel piles, they're actually going to be driving them vibratory, and then they're just proofing them with impact.
Oh.
It's a very minimal duration of time that they're actually going to be using the impact cable.
Okay, well then, what I recommend is changing this to 100 megabytes. Okay, because that's going to give you probably about 15 minutes of recording time, and which is going to be fine for the impact. But then for the vibration, it may be. I wonder how long it's taking to vibrate.
Yeah, so the vibration will be longer, obviously, and a lot more of it.
And a lot more of it, but you don't need to measure sound exposure level for vibration. At least no one has ever asked for that before.
It's peak. We're just just looking for peak, and with that, I know that they really don't.
Well, right, and there's not going to be the thing is the vibration, which is really just like impact, but really, really frequent and lower level impact. Usually, I guess there's no marine mammals you're worried about then, is that right?
No, it's just fish. And I know that the template says that usually you wouldn't even monitor vibratory.
Yeah.
For a peak, but our ITP, our incidental take permit for the fish species says that we will monitor all pile driving and doesn't specify impact or vibratory. So I think we are monitoring everything.
Okay. Yeah, because normally vibration is not monitored for peak; it's monitored for average sound pressure. I mean, regular. That's why I have this total power thing up here, because it's for that. Okay. Well, set it at 100. That way, you'll get files that are not too big, but they're at least big enough chunks that you can get some measures in.
Okay, and then does that mean that the software is splitting them automatically into smaller?
Yes. So what it will do is as long as you continue to record, it'll just save the file and open a new one. And there's a delay of a few milliseconds in between, so you will lose a little data. But
we don't have to stop and start. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to stop and start, except at the very end.
Right.
You have to make sure to stop, because if you don't, that last file that wasn't auto-saved will be lost.
Okay.
And it'll warn you when you go to close. Are you sure? Do you want to save this file? So set it to 100 then. I think for your application that'll be ideal. Okay. And what's going to happen? You don't have to do this. I'm going to open mine up. I'm going to change mine to be 1 megabyte. Okay. And just to show you what happens. Now, we also want to go to File, and then you want to go to your Set Paths. Okay, so you see that window? This is where all the things go.
Okay.
And it's all the default. So your Spectre, the WAV files should go into Spectre Plus, documents, blah, 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 Spectre Plus /WAV. I have mine in a different folder. So if you may want to put yours in a different folder, you can do set or create all paths. You can change where they go, make a new folder. You can type in manually where you want them to go. So you can choose where you want your stuff to go. Most people end up.
This is going to be the actual monitoring file?
Yes.
So we can set up like a project folder and set that as our default.
Yeah, so you would do that. You don't want to do it for everything. I think I would recommend keeping everything else, all the logs and the calibration files and stuff in the Spectre Plus folder. But the actual WAV files you may want to put somewhere else. You may even want to keep it in Spectre Plus /WAV and then just do / whatever your project folder is. Again, I don't. I like mine. I have a recordings folder that's got tons of recordings in it, and that's where I put everything. So that's all your choice, but I want to show you that where you can put everything there. So those are the two main things you need to set up. We'll come back later and talk about printing out your reports. Okay. So I'm just going to demonstrate now. I'm going to go, instead of run mode, I'm going to change my mode to recorder. So let's say you've got your hydrophone deployed. You've tested things. It all looks good. You stop. You change your mode now to recorder. And so you see here it says that there are data that are in the buffers. I don't want to save any of those. I don't want to move those over into the recording file, so I say no. Now I can start recording. And this is saving to a file. And you see that little, oh, you probably did, there's a little flash that happened. So every megabyte.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
So in this case, I get about 5 seconds per megabyte, I think. No, a little over 6 seconds per megabyte. Okay. And so when I stop this, and I would say, I want to find all these files. So if I now go to File, Documents, mine are all in my recordings. Okay. Oops, state modified. They're right here. Okay, so here's these files. And so they just have name, recording, year, month, day, hour, minute, second.
Okay.
So if you change your default folder, then they'll all get dumped into that folder. Now the last one is still not there. So I would have to say File, Save, and it's gonna want me to save it. And so I would probably give it some name based on the very last one, which I don't know the actual time on this one. You know, I'd say something like last. So then that's all the files. I'm changing my I/O setting. Oops, I can't do that in this mode. So the next step is that now you've recorded everything. You want to call it back. Then I would change the mode to post-processing. Now you can open files in the recording mode and just play them. That's great if you want to listen to them. But you also run the risk of messing up a file. So if you change the post-processing, you can't hurt anything. You can open a file, but you can't save it. So that way you can just work on it and not worry about messing anything up. So now I can open this file up. Any of these ones that I just recorded, and run them instead of playing them. And so there's that file, 7 seconds per 100 megabytes. per 1 megabyte, sorry. And auto scale it, and there's my file, there's my time series.
Oh, yeah.
And this one's just got a little bit of talking in it here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's look at the setup. I want to change the setup for vibration because things should be quieter for vibration. Okay, so I'm going to go to my configurations, and I have one that's set up for vibration monitoring that I called vibro monitoring. And you can see that this looks different. I don't have the spectrogram, I just have a spectrum. And the reason for that was because in vibration, again, you said you were looking for peak, so you can still go ahead and use that same method to try to find the peak values. But I can pretty much guarantee in the future for vibration, you're going to need to be monitoring the actual sound pressure level, which is an RMS level. So I think we should go over these settings for the vibration.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I have two different windows. So instead of the spectrogram, I have the spectrum. So you're going to want to go to your plot and deselect the spectrogram and then select spectrum.
Okay. Do I need a new configuration file, or we're going to do that next?
You're making it. Yeah, I'm helping you make it now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Plot.
Spectrum.
Yeah. And again, if things don't fit, you can then do window, tile horizontally.
Uh-oh. Looks like my Spectra Plus crashed.
Oh. Okay.
Close out program and reopen. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yep. Oh. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
So is it up and running okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So, okay, so first of all, open the spectrum. So let me know when you've got that going.
Yeah, I've got that going. I've got a test result.
Okay, great. So first thing, press the F4 key, and let's change our sampling rate and other settings.
Is there another way I can get to that? Because when I push F4, it's not.
Your keyboard is probably set up so that it doesn't default to the function keys. Yeah, go to Options and Processing Settings.
Okay.
Okay. Now you don't have to do this, but it's what again, especially for this particular project. I changed my sampling rate to be 96 kilohertz.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because when I've monitored vibration piling, before I could even sample this high, I saw that there was energy that was ultrasonic, that it was going to the end of the spectrum, and there was more power there, but I couldn't measure it. So now that I can, this DAC will actually do 192. I actually sample it at 96 kilohertz just to make sure that I get in any ultrasonic energy.
Okay.
It ends up it means that then if there is energy, then the level is going to be higher than otherwise, but that's the real levels. So especially if there's marine mammals around, then you'll want to do that. So again, for this project you have to do next week, you can probably change it back to 48, but for now, let's do 96.
Okay. Is there any harm in doing 96?
No, it just takes up more data. That's all.
Data. Okay. Yep.
Yep. How big is the hard drive on your machine?
A terabyte.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're fine then.
Yeah, and I was just actually, we got this laptop that's going to be dedicated to the so we'll probably move the files off onto another computer each time anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do 96, and now you're going to change your FFT size to 32,768. You just click it. And the reason it's such a high one to give you really high, really fine spectral resolution is because we're going to do a third octave, and that means you need more resolution to get to measure the low frequencies, so to measure down to 20 hertz. So we need a really high FFT size. Okay, so we choose that. Still handing window, still 24-bit, still mono. Okay. Everything's similar except your sound level meter is now, the averaging settings. Now you change your speed / blocks to say fast. And I'm still not sure which. There's no direction anywhere on whether to use exponential, linear, or linear. Vector you definitely don't want to use. But between exponential and linear, for making these measurements, the change I think is only fractions of a decibel, so I just stick with exponential.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the main change right there. That's one of them. Now the next one is on the scaling. So we had logarithmic for the frequency axis before. Now we're going to change to 1/3 octave because that's the standard that's used for measuring sound pressure levels.
Okay.
It bends all the energy. What it does is it gives constant bandwidth, constant energy bandwidth, and it's how humans hear. It's how most mammals hear. There's still debate on if that's how marine mammals hear, and fish. There's even more debate. So we stick with this because it's standard sound pressure monitoring. To use 3rd octave. Okay. Calibration should be exactly the same, except in my case, it's a different hydrophone, but I'm not going to change this one this time. Yours should stay the same. Triggering run control, you don't touch. I/O device. Now, here's where you're going to change things. Now, on mine, because my hydrophone is more sensitive.
I have a question back on calibration.
Sure.
So this is, yeah. Where is it supposed to say? Oh, right, the hydrophone is right there. Okay, got it. Yep.
Okay. And you know what? I just discovered John actually did fix something where I told you to get rid of where it says RMS on the Pascal's part.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that anymore because he finally stopped making it display on the time series. So you can keep it.
Okay, mine actually came up without it this time.
Well, that's great. So it doesn't matter. But if in the future, it doesn't matter because it's been years and he finally fixed that little pet peeve of mine. So, okay. I/O device. Now, on mine, it's actually, before mine was at 10 and now I changed it to 2.5. Yours was at 2.5. This is because your hydrophone is less sensitive. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to want to move yours down to 625 millivolts. Okay. Because let's see, 4. Yeah. So what that means is now, because you're 211. That's going to be 190. Yeah, that's going to put your, no, it's going to put it at 205. It's going to put it around, your maximum at around 207 or so. Let me think. Let me see. I gotta think again if that's right or not. 2. Oh no, let's see, 6. Yeah, it's going to be about 202 or 203 dB. So it would overload before the 206, but there's no way in the world that vibration is going to give you 206. And because it's quieter, you want to have your system to be more sensitive. So this makes your system more sensitive by doing the 625. In fact,
when you say it overloads at 202 or whatever it was, what does that mean? What happens?
That means that it won't measure anything above that. It'll just say that that's your maximum was 202.
Okay.
Okay. But with vibration, I can't imagine you ever being anywhere close.
Okay. So it just wouldn't capture data over 202.
It would say that it was 202. Basically, it would say that it was 202.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Okay. So it just wouldn't be compressed to 202.
Yeah. So let's see. I got to think about this. I normally do. So mine's 198. Double A is 204. I'm going to calculate this to make sure that it's right.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm wrong because you were using 2.5 before, but that was on a 211, so you were at 217. So no. So you're still going to be right up there. 65. No, I've got to do my logarithms here. So, log of that. Okay, it is only 4 dB down. So no, yours is minus 207. So that's perfect. So you want 625 because that puts your maximum at 207.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And it means you still won't be able to measure ambient levels. Now, that's the other question. Do you need to measure ambient levels?
I'm not aware that we do.
Good. Okay. Because without hydrophone, it's going to be hard to do because it's so insensitive. Yeah.
What would be the reason for measuring ambient levels? Just to subtract that from your max or something?
No, it's because it seems like every single person that's ever had to do any monitoring, they're also directed to measure ambient levels before and after.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess so you know what your baseline is.
Yeah, it's so you know what your baseline is, but more than anything, I really think it was to collect data.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes
sense. Basically using contractors to collect data for the research.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing in our permit that says we have to do that, so.
Okay, that's perfect. If you did, then you would end up setting the values all the way to minus 156. And it's still, you may not get the quietest levels just because of the sensitivity for hydrophone.
Okay, yeah, so you're just increasing the sensitivity.
That's right, yeah. So you're making your voltage range lower, which increases your sensitivity, your effective sensitivity. Okay, but yours is going to be at minus 625, okay, for this. Those are the main settings. We've got time series, spectrum, right? Now there's on the spec, we've got this set at fast. And what that does is that means that the decay is, a fast decay is a little over 100 milliseconds. 150 milliseconds or something like that for the vibration. And so I think that's what you would want because it's got a lot of stuff going up and down. So you don't want to average it too well. You don't want to smear it out too much. Just making sure I have nothing else set here for you. So we've got, before we save this, but we can always resave it. So right now, you go to config, save configuration, and call this vibro monitoring or whatever you choose. Okay. So now, when I run this, I'm running it now. Yeah, I'm just using real time. Sorry, in my mode, I just went to real time.
Okay.
And what I've set here is a couple other settings we're going to do, but just first tell me if yours looks anything similar to this.
I'm not picking up anything really on the spectrum.
Okay, so let's see what the settings are here first. Okay.
Let me see if I'm zoomed in. How do you go?
Yeah, so just click the auto scale button on the top. The up and down arrows.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Still looks different than yours though. Yours is in far.
Yeah, that's okay. We're going to do that. And then I want you to make sure you click the out full button here.
Okay. Yeah.
And you may need to do the auto scale again. Okay. Now, there's three buttons to the left here. There's one little spiky one that's a little, looks like a skyline, and the one that's a whole bunch of bars.
Okay.
Click the one with the vertical rectangles there.
Yeah, now it's
Okay, so now it's like a sound meter. So this shows you, so there's vibration right there. Okay. Now, there's some other settings on this thing. There's a thing called peak hold.
Mm-hmm.
I have mine set to medium. You can make it slow, fast, whatever you want. But that's just so you can kind of see if there's any high levels that come through.
Okay.
They stay longer, set them to medium. Okay. But we're going to do something else here with the vibration that you don't do with that I haven't done with the impulse, and that's we're going to save a data logging file that's going to be recording the total power every second.
Okay.
Actually, I might save it every 10th of a second for this. But, okay. So do you have your peak hold set up there?
I do. Peak hold is at medium.
Okay. I mean, the plot range.
Real quick before we go on, the time series on the bottom. Do you set that to auto scale as well?
Well, I can. I mean, if something's really low,
Uh-huh.
like on mine, I've changed it to 10 pascals. You can change it to 100 because you're going to just have to adjust that based on
Manually.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is while you're this has no effect on the actual recording. So while you're monitoring, if the thing gets overloaded, like if it's something that this starts getting really, really high down there, you just hit the auto scale. Okay, on any of these.
Just so you can see what's going on. Yeah.
So you can see what's going on exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So there's here this 60 here. This is 60 hertz noise.
Mm-hmm.
This is noise from being inside a building. It shows up there. So let's see here. So that's the display for vibration. Now there's one more thing we have to get here. We want to see our total power. Okay. So I'm going to hit stop. Go to utilities. And right here, select total power. Okay. And once you have that, you can adjust the window and kind of make it as big as you want.
Okay.
So you can see it. And then what that does is just gives you a heads-up display of when I'm running or when we're recording of what the actual sound pressure level is.
Okay.
Just tapping on my hydrophone, you know, it's not very. It's going to be way less than the peak. It could be 20 or 30 dB less than the peak level, but it's giving you the actual vibration sound pressure level. So that's really, it's a much more accurate measure of the noise that's in the water.
Okay.
So we're going to stop that. Now, the next thing, and this I think is important for at least your future vibration monitoring, if you don't have to do it this time, and that is we're going to go to utilities and going to go to data logging. And you can do this for the impact as well, but it's not likely to get the information right when that impulsive strike happens. So that's why I didn't show you to do it then. But so we'll go to setup. Okay. And first we have our file options. So don't select enable logging yet, but under the file name format, you can have the channel name, date and time, or some use a specified thing. I always use the channel name, date, time. So that way your channel, which you called the TC4013 or whatever you called it, it's going to have that name and then the date and the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And then under format options, include the timestamp in the first column. So I always have that in there, and include header on the first row.
Okay.
So that way the data, the first column is all going to be your timestamp, and then the header, the first row will be all your header information. Okay. And then you go to the next tab, which if you have two channels, there will be two more tabs. That's going to be for your hydrophone or whatever yours says.
Yep.
Okay. And you're going to now say enable logging for this channel. And you're going to select total power flat.
And unselect peak level?
Yes, unselect peak level. Because the peak level is not the instantaneous peak. It's it's just whatever your peak sound pressure level ends up being.
Okay.
And it's the peak I take that back. It's actually the peak level at the peak frequency. So what it is, I use that for calibrating my hydrophones. So first it finds the peak frequency within your bin. So if you're doing third octave, it'll find the peak bin. And then it's what the level at that frequency is. So it's not the overall level.
Okay.
Okay. So you want the total. That's the full frequency range. And so you should make sure nothing else is checked. That should be the only thing is now total power. Okay. And then at the right, you want to make sure it says specific intervals. And you want to set it to 0.1 seconds.
Okay.
It'll be a big file, big ASCII file, but it won't be too big because there's not that many. Every 1/10 of a second, you'll get a line written, but it'll be a relatively small. But it's only a line with two pieces of information: the time and the total power.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now you click OK. It's going to ask you if you want to enable logging. So even though you didn't select it, now you can do it. And with data logging, I said yes. Nothing's being recorded yet because nothing is happening. It's not recording. As soon as I hit run, or if I were to hit record, so if everything's set up now, go to recorder mode. Now I start recording. You see, oh, I'm so glad it's drawn out of this. Right here where it says log,
Yeah.
there's a little red bar.
Okay.
That tells you that it's actually recording.
Okay, yeah.
And I never change my file I/O settings. There. Okay.
Do I need to do that?
Change it back to 100. I had changed mine to 1 just for a demonstration, but I forgot.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. Oh, that's right, I didn't change it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have a log file. Back to my, now I got to go to my, try to put mine in a place different. I go to my log and open this up. So what happened here? Oh, I never stopped logging. So that's the other thing, you just click the button to stop it.
Okay.
Okay. So now, there's my log file. So it gives you the time, and it gives you the absolute time. Okay, which is, it's really nice. That way you don't have to look at. It used to be able to record the relative time into the file, and then you'd have to know which file you were working with. Now it doesn't. So now it's just logging, and it gives you the absolute time based on whatever your computer time is, and the value. This actually, you're likely going to run into a situation where, for the vibration, they're going to want to know what it was over the entire time, and you're going to need to plot that. So this is a really nice way to again pull this into Excel or to MATLAB or Origin or whatever your plotting software you use, and just plot the sound pressure level versus time. Then you could go through, and if they want, instead of doing a point every, this is really fine scale, you could average it over a certain amount of time. You can calculate the cumulative distribution function over time, but you have all the data that you need. So I'm going to do this again.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said there it is. I did one.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's go through it again, though, just because the data logging is something that, like, even I've been using this for so many years, and I forgot to stop it, when I went to look at it. So.
I went to the same thing. I had an empty one too, so I pressed stop.
Yeah, well, that's good. Best way to learn. So instead of going to utilities, data logging, the nice thing though is once you have one set up, you can now just turn it on, data logging on.
Right, so when you can just turn it on also with that little toggle button at the top.
Boom, right? And so it's already set. I can go and just check it. Yes, everything's the way I had it before. And just say enable data logging. Click OK, and now the red bar is on. So as soon as I either hit run or start recording, the data logging will continue. So I can hit run, and data logging won't stop because I stopped this. You see the red bar is still on. So if I change modes to recorder and start recording, okay, the data logging is still going.
And does that mean it's recording also your test?
It's recording this test, yeah. So if I hit stop, and now I turn the data logger off. And no, I don't want to enable it again. I just turned it off. That's a little glitchy. So here it is again. Now there should be a gap here. Let's see. Yes. So here we go at 12:59:10. This is where I stopped. So this part I was just in real time mode. And then here, 11 seconds later, is when I started recording.
Okay. And it would be ideal, right, to reset it when you start recording.
Yeah, or not even start it when you're monitoring, when you're just doing the
test.
You're just doing the setup test. Yeah, I wouldn't even start the data logging. I would start the logging once I was ready to start recording. So I would go my real time. You know, make sure the hydrophone's working. Yep. Whistle into it. Deploy it into the water. And we'll get to your deployment a little later. So you get it in the water. Yes, everything's working. Then stop it, and then wait till they're ready to go. I mean, even if let's say it's in there, you're sitting around for 30 minutes waiting for them to go. They say, okay, we're ready to go. Hit the run again just to make sure the hydrophone's still functioning.
Yep.
Right. Then stop. Start your data logging. You don't even have to click enable because it asks you again. So you start your data logging, and then, but what I did not do is I didn't change the recorder, and then start recording.
When I change to recorder, it says data is still available in real-time data buffers. Do you want to convert this data to WAV files for the processing?
I always say no, because that was just the test data.
Okay.
And you're going to have that data, and then there's going to be, it's going to be converted. It'll be then stored in with whatever file you're recording.
Yeah.
But you won't have the proper time separation between that old data and the new stuff.
Okay.
So I always say no, unless something happened during that time, and when something like if they started pile driving before you had a chance to start recording,
Okay.
then I would say yes.
Okay, because then you can capture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see here. So we save those.
So for the data logging, would you start the data logging before you start recording?
Yes, because
The order of operations matters.
well, because if you start recording and then you start data logging, then you'll have recorded sound data that has no log. There may have been information there that you lost, but if you start logging, nothing happens until you start actually running.
Okay.
So let's see here. If I start data logging right now, there should be no log file here. Let's just find out. If there is, then there's nothing. It's empty. It saved a file, but it was empty because there were no data for it.
Okay.
Because what it's doing is it's saving certain parameters, and in order to save those parameters, it has to calculate them. And right now, it hasn't calculated total power because nothing's running. So the data logging is triggered by either running in post-processing mode, because in post-processing mode, you have data in the buffer. If you have opened a file, you can run your data logging file on recorded data. And I do this all the time. So that's a really nice feature about it. You can run the data logging on all modes. So it means that if let's say you forgot to run your data logging file, you recorded your sounds, right? And then you said, oh man, I forgot to start this thing. You can just run it. You can just open the file in post-processing and run the data logging file on that.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So I could say, or the recording file. You want the post-processing to go faster. So file. I can open a file here. Last one. Okay, there's not much there except for 60 hertz noise in it, right? And my data logging has been on the whole time. I'm going to cancel it. Okay, so I opened a file. I'm in post-processing mode. I just turn on my data logging, and I click run, and now I turn my data logging off. I'm going to do it the other way. I go to utilities and data logging off. Okay, you see it change this to go off. Same number of button clicks though. And now I have the data log file for the pre-recorded data.
And then the date and timestamp is the same when the data was actually recorded, not when you ran the field?
No, unfortunately, when you do it that way, it's the time into the file.
Okay, the time that you played it, that you reran it.
It's the time actually. Yeah, it's not the time that I ran it. It's
I don't know.
Time.
But so like if you ran some data in the field and you forgot to data log it, and then you came back and you said, oh, I forgot to data log it, run the data logger, then you could run it later, but it's not going to have the same date and timestamp as it would have been in the field.
That's right. It's going to have. I'm going to talk to John to see if there's anything he can do to make that work. Because what it does is it has the date and time. It has the relative time into the file.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Okay. I mean, I don't know if that's important, but
yeah, it would be nice if you could add that to it. I'll see if he can do that.
Okay. I mean,
I've worked with him for 20 years, and usually whenever there's something new, if it's not too difficult, he just adds it into the software, and whenever the next release comes out, it's a free upgrade, so you'll have it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's right. So that one was an empty one because I did that. And that one has the actual time. Yeah, and that was something in, let's see here. Oops, I can't do it in this mode. In order to change the file IO options, I have to be in real-time mode.
Okay.
Well, the timestamp is in the WAV file, so he should be able to get that information out. It's the timestamp that goes into the name of the WAV file. I don't know if it's actually in the header or not, but it should be able to extract that somehow. I'll see if you can do that. Yeah. But right, you can always get it from the timestamp of the file.
Yeah, as long as you understand that. I was just and I don't know if it'll be important.
Right. Let's see. So we've gone over the data logging, power. I think the next thing I'd like to talk about, maybe we should all take. Have you guys had any lunch or anything? I'm assuming hopefully you're eating while we're talking. Is I'd like to go into the kind of logistics of deploying the hydrophone.
Okay. Yeah, at some point I wouldn't mind taking a break and just grabbing a quick bite because I'm kind of intensively working on taking notes and doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't need long.
Yeah, well, why don't we do that now? I could use a bite myself. How long would you like 15 or 20 minutes? Or?
Yeah, maybe 15 would work.
Okay. Is that good for everybody else? Is everybody else here?
That works for me.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay, great. Then let's see, it's 10 after now. We'll come back at 1:25.
Okay.
Okay. And I think there's no reason not to just leave the session open.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll pause my recording.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right.
Great. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen right now, but yeah. Okay. See you at 25 after.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey,
Hey, they're on a break.
yeah, I just got back to the office.
Well, you'll be back in time because they're showing, I think when he gets back, we're going to show actually how to deploy it.
Cool.
So the first couple hours has been all about the software itself and getting it set up.
Yeah, I saw the first 45 minutes, and it was a lot to follow with settings and stuff, but and then it started raining up here, and we finally got an answer on what to do about 53. The carbon efficient or equivalent seed tested high again on this one like it did for 35. So they got a second contractor out, a UT contractor out to measure the carbon content, and they actually tested lower, so they can now weld a sleeve.
Okay. Hey, can I call you on the office line? Because
Sure.
this is being recorded.
Okay.
I don't think anyone wants to hear all this junk.
True,
Okay,
true. Okay, all right.
Bye.
Bye. I forgot it was being recorded. I was telling Don about the carbon issue. Hello?
It's not recording.
Okay. It should be. Can you hear me? Oh wait, no, it's still on. Yeah. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll have questions like next week as we're kind of putting that together.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely call me.
Okay.
Okay, so that popped up, right? So now if you go back here and go back to your vibration monitoring, it should pop up the other window or change configuration and everything should look different.
Okay, yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And yeah, on this screen, you know, the way this thing looks, if it's hard on the eyes, you can change anything here. You know, you can change your background color to whatever you want. And, you know, like that, which I don't like. So, but yeah, or change it to gray, or sometimes it's kind of nice. So, especially if you're outside, sometimes some different colors are going to show up better. So it's just good to know. You may want to just change some of that. So you have, I believe it's only a 6-meter cable on the hydrophone. Is that right?
It is. It was the only thing available.
Yeah.
Which works for this, because we don't expect that there's going to be too much water depth, although we will have the barge freeboard to account for too.
Huh.
And I don't know how much that'll be. But the water depth, I think, is supposed to be about a maximum of 12 feet. It is tidal, but we're in a shallow bay. So.
Okay, well, so you're going to want to put the hydrophone so that you can try to maintain it the same depth all the time. There have been people before suggested always be at the mid-water depth, but when it's tidal, that's really hard to do because that means you're going to have to keep changing its depth constantly. And when you measure sounds underwater, it's the same as when you measure in air, but it's exacerbated underwater. The position of the hydrophone is going to make it relative to wherever the sound source is going to make a big difference in what you measure. So you could have a hydrophone at one location and have another one a meter away and get a difference of maybe 6 decibels.
Based on the depth of the two?
Just not even on the depth, just based on the way the sound is traveling. It should be the same if you're the same distance from it and the same depth, but that could vary by at least 3 dB. But if you're at a different depth, then it could easily vary by at least 6, if not more. And when the tides change, the level is going to change. The sound level is going to change. So if you stay in the mid, what's going to happen, especially in shallow water, different frequencies of sound waves are going to refract differently. Reflect and refract. Refract from the bottom, reflect off of the surface. So the level at different frequencies is going to change. And that's going to then change the overall sound pressure level. So that's why I always recommend that you just stay the same depth. So at least then what's going to happen, either stay the same distance from the surface or the same distance from the bottom. But that way you're maintaining it, at least you're keeping one variable constant. Right. Because you're constraining one variable, and that's whatever sounds are going to be refracted from the bottom. At least you can get the same frequencies there, or from reflecting off the top, you'll have the same behavior there. But if you stay in the middle, then you're going to be changing both of them, and it's a lot harder to do because you have to keep changing the depth. So because your cable is so short, you're not going to be able to really moor something to the bottom, anchor to the bottom and have it then floating back up at a certain height off the bottom. So I recommend that with this hydrophone, you always mark it and then keep it that depth. And if the maximum you said is 12 feet?
I think so. Isn't that right, Don? Oh, I think she's not on. I think her mic is not working. Yeah, I think that's right. I know it's a shallow bay, and I think that that's what it says.
Okay, but what's the minimum?
Oh, well, the minimum, like the barge could sit on the bottom. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Huh. Trying to think of what. So if the barge is on the bottom, what's the water depth though?
The water depth at minimum, I want to say is like 60. Let me see if I can pull up the. I think I know right where I can find it actually. Okay. Kevin, are you on? He might actually.
Yeah, I'm on too. The water depth will get a little deeper as they drive the pilings into the pipe string.
They're likely to be shut down at that point. Well, if you got 6 feet, so what I would do is I would put the hydrophone, assuming that you're going to continue to monitor, then I would put the hydrophone at a depth of 3 feet from the surface of the water, 1 meter down. Because if you're 1 meter down, then you're still going to detect the sounds just fine, especially because it's shallow. And so the distance from the top will be from the surface will always be the same. And then worst case will be mid water column at the when the tide's at the lowest.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would be the rationale then for setting at 1 meter.
Okay.
And then that gives you 5 meters of cable to be able to get it to the instrument and down over the edge of the barge.
Right.
And that might be all you're going to get anyway.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to know until we're out there what the amount of freeboard that's going to be available.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll change too much, though. I think we're going to be on like an equipment barge, not so much like a materials barge where it'll change up and down.
Right.
Flat. So I think it should be okay. I think we should be able to find a way to maintain a consistent depth.
Yeah. Yeah. You just put a piece of tape around. That's just a piece of brightly colored tape, and you'll have to keep an eye on it. Or the other option is you drive something down. You put a pole down. If it's that shallow, you drive something down into the bottom.
To hold the.
Yeah, but the tide's going up and down, so yeah.
Yeah, well, and then you would also have to have like divers in the water or something to attach it, probably, which we may not have all the time.
Right. Okay, so no matter what, the hydrophone's going to have to be weighted so that it hangs relatively vertically, and so you can be assured that your depth is what you think it is. So you're going to have to attach the hydrophone cable to another line.
Okay.
And then on that line, put the weight. And you want to securely attach the cable, but not overly securely. So you don't want to cut into the cable with, if you use cable ties, they don't want to be cinched too tight. You would probably want to use tape and then put cable ties over that.
Okay. And what do you suggest for a line?
Just something that's quiet, so a soft nylon line would be good.
And I assume the hydrophone has to hang below that line, like the line can't be,
it's not really critical in your condition situations because you're not monitoring ambient levels, so you don't care if there's a little bit of noise from the hydrophone rubbing or touching it. because what you really are interested in is the loud sounds, and even if rubbing is 140 decibels or even 160 decibels, 200 dB is still that's still 100 times louder.
And there wouldn't be a problem if it was oriented such that the nylon was between the hydrophone and the source?
Not at the lower frequencies, not at even as low as 10 or 15 kilohertz, because the sound waves are still relatively big. The line, if it's soft line, it's gonna be permeated with water, so there really won't be much difference. Now, ideally, if you could have it so that you had the hydrophone so that it wasn't touching the rope, but if it went out, that's not so easy to do with these tiny little 4013s. Because I usually, when I attach them, I would usually leave about a foot of cable then from the last attachment point, and have it so that the line was anchored or heavily weighted, and then have another line pulling out on the cable so that it flows away from the anchor line. But I think that's going to be too complicated, and then set up the possibility of entangling it.
Okay, so are you talking about weighting the actual line such that the weight is in the water column, or actually securing it to the bottom?
Well, I was talking about weighting it in your case. I mean, if you could anchor it to the bottom and then be able to just slide the hydrophone up and down, that would be one thing.
I think it would be possible in our situation just because we don't have such great depth.
Right.
I don't know if one would be better than the other.
Yeah, see, I was just talking with somebody a few months ago that it was also doing shallow work, but it was in a river, so the depth wasn't changing. So in that case, I recommended just driving a pole, like I mentioned, driving a pole into the ground, into the bottom, PVC pipe, and having the hydrophone inside that. But then the level wasn't changing.
Okay.
So, and if you had a longer cable, then I would tell you to do that same thing, and then just have it always be one long.
If you put the hydrophone inside a PVC, it won't change the sound reception?
No, the PVC, if it's a PVC pipe, is pretty transparent to sound. It may attenuate by a few tenths of a decibel, but nothing really appreciable. Especially if you drill, but it's got to be flooded with water, of course.
So yeah, Dawn is reminding me by text that this has to be mobile too, because the barge is going to be progressively getting further and further from shore.
Right. So you're going to have,
okay. You'll be able to drive something in the bottom.
So yeah, that's not going to work. Well, then in your case, what you're going to want to do is, what you could do also is you can put the line in the water. The thing is, you're not going to be that deep, but put the weight on the line and have the hydrophone hanging below the weight.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I would do with you in your case. So have the hydrophone, even if it's 6 inches below the weight, should work okay.
Okay.
I would have it at least, I would have it 6 inches below the weight, and then have it attached to the line, going up.
Right. Okay.
You probably won't have much current there. It's shallow water.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the delta. I know the current can get pretty strong. I would imagine closer to shore, that's not going to be as much the case. But as we get offshore, it's possible that we'll have some current too. But yeah, I don't know. Some of that we're probably going to have to mess around with.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, and find a place that's not got as much current if you can. So that may be.
Yeah, the difficult thing is we're going to be on a barge, and in order to find a place that's 10 meters from the source, and also, we won't. I don't think we'll have too much play with where we're at in terms of, if we want to be consistently 10 meters from the source.
Yeah, understood. And that comes, my next question then is, how far away, so you're going to be deploying from the barge itself, is that right?
Yes.
Because the barge acts like a sounding board. So you're measuring the sounds. It's in shallow water, right? If it was really deep water and you can get the hydrophone deep enough, then it wouldn't matter. But
yeah, no, we're probably definitely going to be, if we're only a meter below the surface, we're definitely going to be between the barge and the source.
Yeah.
So we're going to be getting reflection back, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
But you know what? The thing is, that with the way you're measuring for the peak levels, for the impact, just looking at the impact first, it's set that it's going to take whatever's the loudest within that quarter second. It's not going to double count anything. So it's not going to matter whether the first impulse, the sound wave impinging on the hydrophone is louder, or the one that hits the barge first and reflects off is louder. It's just going to take whatever's loudest. And I guess that's the physical conditions in that location. And if there happened to be a fish in that location, then that's what it would experience. Yeah. And for vibration, though, yeah, it's going to be probably a little bit louder than it otherwise would be if you were just in open water.
It's going to register louder than it actually is.
Well, not really. It's registering as loud as it is there.
Yeah, right.
But it'll register louder than it is away from the barge.
Right. So if a fish was on the other side of 10 meters away, it would experience something different.
Yeah, it would be lower. So at least you'll be measuring worst case.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't anticipate it'll be, if it's depending what, again, if it's got to be just the peak levels below 206, then you're not going to have to worry about anything with the vibro in this particular case.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the constraints we have. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's the thing to do then, is to attach it to a soft line, put the weight so that it's above the hydrophone, and you're not going to need a lot of weight because this hydrophone's tiny. It's not going very deep, but just a couple pounds. And then have that be 1 meter deep, or if you learn that you're not going to be measuring when the depth gets below something else, whether it's maybe it's 10 feet or something, I don't know. Then you can adjust it and make the hydrophone a little deeper.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And do you have another drive so you can, after you said you're going to be backing up the data?
Yes. Yeah, we will.
Okay.
We'll have to figure out, what to do daily or.
I would do it daily.
Is it something you could just throw on a thumb drive? I don't see why not, right? And we get a large enough thumb drive.
Sure. Yeah, there's no reason not to. Whatever kind of medium you want to use. Yeah, whatever's fast. Maybe you have a fast USB 3 drive, external drive, then you stick it right, dump it on that. And it's not going to be, it still won't be that much data since you're only using one channel.
Okay. It looks like it's probably just Dropbox or something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, something well, actually, no, before I go to that, so do you have any other concerns or anything about the actual deployment of the instrument?
I can't think of any right now unless anybody else does.
Yeah. Yeah, just if there's a strong current, and well, you're just going to have to put more weight on the rope, and you may get strumming on it. Let me change my modes here, just so you can see. So if the hydrophone, I'm just gonna, what I'm doing right now, I haven't started yet, but I'm just gonna start, so I'm just now shaking my hydrophone, okay? Just kind of wiggling it around. So I don't know if you can see the time series or not.
Yeah.
But so you see there's a bunch of, there's noise up in here.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that. That's just strum, it's flutter. Really, more than anything, it's the low frequency. There's really the green stuff down at the bottom. So that's from what's called cable strum, or the hydrophone is just, it's strumming like a, in fact, the time series, kind of, it looks like that, like a guitar string.
Mm-hmm.
Strumming. And that's what you're going to end up seeing. So if there's a lot of, you're going to see a lot of this low frequency noise, all that green stuff there. And it's increasing the total, the overall power is actually going up quite a bit because of that. But it's still nothing compared to what you would get with the actual impact. So even though it may increase the overall by 20 or 30 dB, the ambient, just self noise from the hydrophone strumming, that's if you have a strong current. It'll still be a lot less than the impact, and that impact is going to be, say, 100 to 1,000 times higher. So you won't see it. It'll be a 1%. It'll be a 1% addition to a 1/10 of a percent addition from the strumming. So on the really loud sounds, on the ambient sounds, of course, it'll make it's very loud and noticeable, but it won't affect the actual measurements that you make for the pile driving.
Okay.
So one thing I wanted to show you that you can do here is, in particular, it ends up being useful for just generating quick reports. I'm going to just do a file. I'm going to open up let's see here. No, I think it's vertical. Please. A short little pile driving clip. Okay, so this is some real pile driving. Actually, I'm going to do a bigger one than that. And I can't remember the best one here. There we go, that's a good one. All right, so here's some real impact pile driving. And the calibrations are wrong here because it just, this old file, I don't think, it didn't have the right, yeah, it doesn't have the same calibration file in it. But if I run this, okay, so this is what you should expect to see. And so you see it flash by on the time series, but then we've got these nice displays here on the spectrogram. Okay, I'm going to stop that. You can, if you hit the control, hold the control key while you're here. I'll zoom up on one of these guys. Here we go. If you hold the control key and then click with the left click on the mouse and then drag, it gives you the relative time and relative amplitude. So these guys are 1.5 seconds apart. Okay. You can do the same on the spectrogram. You can control, click, and drag, and it gives you relative time between cursor start and cursor stop, which is not necessarily what you're doing for what you're doing, but it's a nice thing to know about. So with this, what I would do, this is what I'm going back to the impulse pile driving. So we'll go out full. So you're going to get a file that looks like this, right? In Pascals. And instead of using the zooming magnifying glass to zoom a specific ones, instead you can just go to Edit and select all. That way you get the whole time series. Okay? And this is a minute and whatever, almost 2 minutes worth. Okay, so you get the whole time series. Right click, export peak values, and I want everything above 3 times 10 to the 4th. Okay. So I want everything above 30,000. This is definitely the wrong calibration on here. Okay. Okay. Now, oops. Oh, brother, where did I save it? It said test 2, but obviously I saved it in a different one, didn't I? Let's do this again. Oh, it saved it. Okay. So there's a thing that I need to talk to John about. It saves it wherever I was last, which just happened to be in my recordings file. So, okay. Recordings. Noise. There we go. Okay, so here's this one. So these are all, this is bogus because they weren't that loud. But it's found every single peak, and they're all at about 211 dB. Very consistent. Okay, but that's what I really want to show is doing the select all. But now maybe these are all consistent because the file was overloaded. Right. Something was overloaded, right? Well, how do you check that? And you know, when you look at the absolute levels, you can't tell because I don't know what it means here. But if you go back to your options and processing settings and calibration, and you uncheck the enable calibration, say OK, and now you'll need to auto scale again. And now this is giving you the percent of full digital scale, okay, so that the maximum that a file can have, whether things are all ones or all zeros, right? Well, and if you look at this, here's 100%. All of these, so this particular recording, the file was overloaded.
Right. Okay.
So it was all maximum. That's why those numbers were maximum at 211 at that one. So I wouldn't expect to see things that consistent, and that's what gave me the clue that okay, this must be overloaded. And now I confirmed it. So now you know that the data you have are this is the conservative maximum levels because your system actually overloaded.
How do you test that so that you know you're getting your max levels?
To know that, you mean while you're doing your recording?
Well, yes, make sure that you're not overloading.
Okay, so let's do that. Go down here, and I'm going to turn this back on. Okay. Well, so the way you're going to know, first of all, this you have it set up. Right here. So you are set here at, I believe yours is plus or minus 2.5 volts. So if it were 1 volt, then your maximum level would be equal to the level that you put in here for your calibration, enabling your calibration. Oh, interesting. when I read this file in, that actually was those were the correct values.
Hmm.
Because this one, it had all the calibration data in the file that I happened to open. Yeah, so that's how it knew that it was really 211. So I'm going to open yours up. Okay, there we go. So on impulse monitoring, so yours is 2.5 volts. Your setting was minus 211. So if it were 1 volt, it would be 211 dB. In this case, it's 198.5. Yours 211 would be the maximum level you could get. Okay, but it's actually 2.5 times that. So you need to convert 2.5. You need to convert 2.5 to decibels. You need to convert the linear amount to decibels. So 2.5. Take the common log and multiply by 20. So that's 8 decibels. It's 7.96. So 8 dB. So that's 211 plus 8. It's 219. So you will overload at 219 dB. That's numerically. That's how to figure it out.
Okay.
So yours will be 219, or I think this one I said it was 207 or something like that if we did that 165. Okay. But the way to know while you're actually recording or monitoring, so when you're in real-time mode and you're running, see on the very bottom here, this green bar? See that green bar that's moving?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it moving or not.
Well, at the very bottom, yes, I do.
Very bottom. Right. That is my level. That's telling me whether I'm overloading or not. And if I were to overload,
goes off the screen.
I can't get it to do it. It doesn't just go off the screen. It will turn red and it'll say overload, but I need to get it to do it. So I've got to show you that happening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this way down. Okay. So now it's really sensitive. Now my hydrophone, I can just barely talk into it and it hears me really well. And I can get this to overload. There we go. See it flashing red there? I don't know if I can do it long for it to turn red. When it's red, then it's overloading. Okay. So if it goes into the red, it's just like you're recording on an old tape recorder. If it goes red, then you've clipped.
Did you stop screen sharing?
Oh no. Hang on, but you know what? What I'll do is I'll refresh it.
We lost you. I can hear you.
Okay, I'll just refresh it. Okay, is it back?
No. Uh-oh.
Have you all lost the screen?
I can see it.
You see it? Sarah, what do you see?
I see my computer.
Go to, okay, Don sees it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think there's something in your settings you need to, somehow it got minimized. Just click on your Skype.
Yeah, I can't, that's so weird. I can't even find that Skype is still connected. But I can hear you.
And I can hear you. I know you're there.
I was struggling a little bit with Skype because in Windows 10 it seems I have a Skype app and I can use it through the web. So I'm not even sure how I'm connected. But okay. Oh. I guess I can hang up and try.
Yeah, hang up and just let's see. Well, if you hang up, I don't want to lose you completely, but you can try hanging up and then.
Actually, can't even figure out how to do that because I've lost Skype completely.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna kick you out.
Okay.
sorry. Now I'm going to call her back. Are you there? Hi.
I'm back. Yay.
Good.
Thanks for fixing it for me.
Sure. I have not had to do that before, but I can like hang up with individuals and then call them right back.
So. Oh, that worked perfect. Thank you.
And do you see my screen?
I do.
Okay, good. Well, then let me show you this again. So, so here it is, and eventually now it's turning red.
Yeah.
So that's overloading. So you don't want it to turn red. I mean, if it gets up into the, if it's orange, then you're okay. But again, that hydrophone and the settings you're using, it's not going to overload.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you attach it, unless you're maybe a meter away from the pile, then it could. And how are you going to measure your distance? Are you just using a little laser rangefinder?
We haven't really discussed that yet.
Okay.
Rangefinder.
I have a rangefinder.
Yeah. I guess we'll see if we can use the rangefinder.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys been close to that 10 meters away from pile driving?
10 meters. Yeah, 10 meters.
I mean, have you stood that close before?
Oh.
Yes, it works 10 meters.
No, but I mean, have you stood 10 meters away from the pile driving operation before?
Have we experienced that? I think at some point in my distant past, I did some monitoring on pile driving, but I don't remember how close I was.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just asking because I was the ones that I showed you here from that Port of Portland one that I did years ago. I was 11 meters away because we couldn't get closer. And it just happened that these are sheet piles, and so they were up high, and I was down in a boat. And I realized that if something went haywire, the pile was taller than I was away from it. So, yeah, I didn't like it very much. And was very, very loud in the air. And I wasn't monitoring the air, of course. But now, do you have to monitor air also?
No, I don't think so.
Not for birds or anything. All right.
But we will have hearing protection.
That's good. Yeah. Well, then what I want to show you here is something that is kind of nice. I'm going to open this up again. So if we were to look at, so I did the calculation, then we found all those spikes and saw that they were clipped. But for creating the SEL, again, you do the same thing, file, select all, right click, and compute SEL. It just looks really nice. You can auto scale it, so it looks even nicer. Again, here, this is in Pascals. You can go to your settings, change them to energy, click OK, have to auto scale again. And now you have that. And that looks more typical of what you would see in published plots, is the SEL in decibels. And I don't have pull the trace on, I'll do that. And we can see our maximum was 211. So eventually it actually got up to the level of the piles. I had enough of them that it's as high as a single strike is instantaneously. But you can make some pretty nice plots really easily. You can make nicer ones, of course, if you're using some plotting software. But in order to plot things, you can do it several ways. One is you go to File, and then go to your print setup. I'm sorry, that's to say your printer. File, you go to your annotations and margins, and then you can set up. You've got two labels for the top, and then if you want to scrunch your plot down, you can select this little box and print 10 more lines down below of more descriptive text if you want. So you can have Title 1, Title 2, and that's your default for whatever you're going to print. And then you can just hit the printer key, and tell it where you want it to go. In this case, I'm going to have it go to a PDF writer. And when you print it, it opens up the annotations again. So if you want to change them, you can. This is the test. Okay. And so then that prints it. Now you're probably only can you see this window that just popped up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm going to maximize that then. Okay. So what it gives you is the same plot that you saw on the screen, a little bit nicer layout. And then on the top, it tells you who it's licensed to, and it tells you all your processing settings, and then the time that it was published. And we should show that thing. Get away from there. Go on. Go on. Why is it? Anyway, there's a nice display up here. Oh, here we go. Maybe I can move it. There we go. You know, so your annotation goes up here. So these are it's kind of a quick and dirty plot, but you can print things out pretty easily should you need to. So I've had a lot of customers that have said that their agencies like the reports that have them showing their SEL plot. And so it's a really quick way to do it. And the same thing with the time series one. You know, they give them the time series plots and show whether it's exceeding the level or not. And in fact, if you do it in the SPL, in the energy mode, then it makes it easier to tell whether it's gone over or not, because then it's an SPL.
Well, can you show me that again? Energy mode. Where did you?
Mm-hmm. It's in these settings. It's what we did earlier. So normally it's amplitude, right? Move, and it looks like this, right? These are power driving strikes. Just zoom up on close so they see they really look up close, right? Bunch of garbage. Okay, so that's that. So this is your display settings, display options. That's where we did the pull cursor to trace thing.
Yeah.
So
okay.
instead of amplitude, you click on energy, which is logarithmic. Click OK. You need to auto scale it. And now you have everything in a logarithmic display. So boom, a little ringing, boom. And then you can see if it's exceeded the level that you've set. So are you able to duplicate that?
Looks like she might have gotten kicked off again.
Oh, let me take a look here. Oh, she's gone. I'm going to add her to the group call again. Just call her.
Hi.
Hi. Oh. Looks like her computer's having a little issues. Yeah. Yeah. I can barely hear you. You've got the little spinny circle going on.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see what you're doing.
Okay.
And I can see you even if you can't hear me.
I can hear you. I'll just ignore your spinny circle and close that. Okay. So were you able to then to get to this?
On my own, no, I was taking notes.
Okay.
and watching rather than actually doing it on my screen. So.
Okay. But you did it on your screen earlier today, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then again, to print, you can just hit the printer button here, or you can say File and Print. And choose what printer you want it to go to, or save it to a PDF. Right. And so this is a more. Right, and then it prints it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the other reason I'm not doing it is I don't think I mean, I guess I have some data. I don't
yeah,
really have data to print up yet.
right, of course, yeah. So that's that test. Okay. Not full. So again, it's these options, amplitude or logarithmic. And we'll just keep it on logarithmic. All right, and I'll minimize that. So if we went back to real time and monitoring. Okay. I don't think there's anything else. I can't think of anything else that's critical for you to know right now. The thing is that just to be aware of that is when you're saving files, when we do arrow, highlight, right click, and export p-values to text file. That when we do this, 180, to pay attention to where it's being saved. Because it's going to be wherever the last thing that SpectraPlus used. So it's whether that's opening a file or saving a file. Saving a WAV file or opening one to read or saving a log file. So it's important to then select the directory, the folder that you want.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go to SpectraPlus log. So that way it's saved. To the right place. Go back, SpectraPlus. And there is the file. So again, it's the relative time into the file.
Okay.
So who all of you are going to be using this? Are all of you going to be taking turns using the system?
Yeah, so, we have certain monitors approved to do this, and we have quite a few since we're going to be going through the holidays here. So we'll be rotating people in and out, but yeah, pretty much everybody on the call probably will use it at some point.
Okay.
As well as, one or two people who couldn't make the call today, so.
Right.
So what do you recommend in terms of playing around with it? Do you have any recommendations for how to go about collecting some data before we actually get out on the job site? Can you put it in the bathtub and make some noise? Or?
You can. Well, yeah, you can. You can put it in a bucket. You can just use it like you're using it without even putting it in water at all.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was doing today.
right? So that works great for doing that. But if you want to actually see how loud certain like real things in water are, then you can do that. You can put it in a bucket.
Okay.
And you can talk into the bucket, or you can walk around, or you can bang on tables. You can put it in a bathtub, and it's going to sound different. It's going to be a little more realistic. If you've got a body of water outside to use, then that would be great, because you can just, I mean, you can get ambient noise, but it's gonna be a little bit. Well, you need to find a way to get the darn thing deployed properly. So I think you are going to want to use some body of water outside, whether it's a pond or a lake or something that you can just test that out with. But just in the office, a bucket of water works fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just gave I was just in India last month for a conference, and ended up giving a couple talks at the Wildlife Institute of India, and just showing them how hydrophones work, just really basic one. And we were going to go out into one of the ponds, but you couldn't get to it because it was too overgrown with all kinds of stuff on the sides. So we just used a bucket of water.
Okay. Okay, and then the other thing I was going to ask is, do you have data available for us to play with, like as far as interpreting and exporting reports, or would that not really work because they couldn't have the same configurations that we're using?
Well, no, you could. In fact, if you go on your computer right now, go to File, Open, and it's in Spectra Plus. Let's see, let me get to it. And go to Wave, and go to Samples.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You're going to see Pile Driver. Now, the calibration is going to be off, so that doesn't matter. Continue using one, or just continue using your current calibration.
Okay.
This actually is pile driving data from that thing that I was just showing you.
Okay.
So I've given this in the orcas or recordings that I made also. Sample rate is dumbed down a little bit. It's not 24-bit like what you would be normally working with. But oops, now I gotta get my file back. Here we go. Okay. So you can play around with that pile driving file right now. I think you've got, what, 6 or 8 strikes in it or something. And it's going to be close to the level you want. Maybe it's a little high. This doesn't display as nicely as it should. Yeah. The scaling here. When you print it, it will display fine. Or if you change it to energy, then it displays much better. So there you go. These are the ones that did not overload.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See, they're at 216 dB, really loud. But this was, these are sheet piles, and so I was recording. So talk about being next to a sounding board. You can see there's a lot of reverberation right here.
Yeah.
So it was coming from multiple paths. I was getting right here. I was getting the original, the initial impulse, and I was getting ones that were coming from a couple meters away from the impulse and were reflecting toward it. And yeah. 14. You know, they're just proofing, so they're going to be deep by the time they strike them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then with that, you can also run it and get what the impulses look like. And here's another little more realistic what these look like. Because these didn't overload. Before we had some more low, there was other low frequency. I don't know if you remember that. But in the one that the one that had all those strikes, when the thing is overloaded, then you start getting a square wave. And so when you have a square wave, you have it starts distorting, and you have other artificial frequency components coming in to make up the spectrogram. And so that's why there was more low frequency noise in the other ones. So this one, the peak frequency was like around 100 hertz, and then again at 4 kilohertz or so for these particular piles. And I should just show you this. Again, it's only if you need to really dig into the structure of things. But what you can do is when you highlight a window, so you need to click on that window, make sure it's highlighted. So time series, edit, select all. If I right click, I can say compute and display spectrogram. And what it does now is it displays a spectrogram for that whole time series.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. And I can do the same. I can just zoom up on, oops. I can just look at one of them and display the spectrogram for just what I highlighted. And it'll show it for just that one. Okay, but again, it's more for if you need to analyze things for some reason. But it's one of the features of this. And you'll see when you start playing around with it, there's a lot of different kinds of analysis you can do, should you need to in the future. And you could do it the other way around also. If I were to highlight this, say I highlighted this whole, well, let's do this, we'll do it now. Oops. In and out is frequency in and out for this. So if I were to highlight this, I can right click and display the time series for that. And I can also expand the spectrogram to fill the screen or to fill the window. And maybe you will want to, with the vibration, although the data logging is better, there's something you can do with the vibration. And let me open up a file that's more vibration type stuff. Ambient air check. Well, this should be good enough. Okay. Okay. So here's just a bunch of kind of random noise. But this is from operations during and in between vibration. If you say edit, select all, or just highlight a certain section, you can right click and you can compute the RMS levels. And so it's going to give you, I don't know if you can see this, but it's going to give you the RMS levels in pascals and in sound pressure level. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a quick way to just look at the overall sound pressure level over a long period of time.
Okay.
Okay. And in fact, if I do this.
And so your max there, that's another way you could check your max too, right?
Yes, that's right. You're absolutely right. That is. I've not used it because I've never needed to use it for this kind of thing, but yeah, that's right. So let's open this up again. I'm just going to look at this section here. Okay. So I can highlight a section, or I can say edit select all, and I can look at the average spectrum. And what it's going to do, once it's done calculating, because it's pretty big, is give me the spectrum for the whole thing, as well as the peak values.
Okay.
So here's the average, and here's the peaks in red. And this is the total. This is the average sound, the sound pressure level, and that should be close, exactly the same as the RMS. RMS is 144, whereas that's 140. It's just because of the way it's calculated that one's an average of the spectrum, and one's the and one is the actual it's the actual mathematical RMS level of the time series. But the minimum and the maximum value, so when you can look at your max value, and that's where it is.
Okay.
171 dB, which is, yep, almost 400 pascals. It's right here.
Is there anything in the samples that would be similar to vibratory that we could practice with?
I don't know. Let's see here. This is stuff that's the demo didn't exist before. See it here. Transfer functions, spectrum. I don't know what these are. These are all new. Oh, this is speech.
Yeah, narration. Okay, so they're all.
No, not the turbine either. It's too high frequency. And I don't. The vibration that I have is from, I think it's customer data.
Okay.
You know what? I will look. I'm going to look through my database. I don't want to waste our time here trying to do it. But I'll look through and I'll see if I've got anything. And if I do, then I'll send you some.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We've got enough to practice for now.
Yeah. And you know, if you really want it, if you want it, I just do this. Oops. Yeah. Okay. There we go. You didn't like what I was doing. This is actually
Make some of your own, yeah.
that is actually very, very similar to real vibropile driving, except that it has higher frequency components here because it's got metal on metal, which I didn't have.
Okay.
But you can do that yourself, or I could send this to you. if you like. Okay, so if this ever happens to you, don't freak out or anything. All it is that and it happens. It's common. The spectrogram. It's if you go with maybe you've had calibration turned off or you just turned it on. It's because your plot top is set way too low, and so it's just everything's overloaded, and so that's then what it would look like. And this is what it looks like when it's third octave. So it looks like all this kind of smooshed out bars and stuff. And that's why I have it on logarithmic when we do the pile driving, so that you actually have more resolution. That's the whereas that's what it looks like on logarithmic. Well, we've got a little time. One thing that we haven't gone over that you may have to do in the future is measure ambient levels.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'll show you that quickly. It's basically the same as the vibration, except we've changed the averaging to slow. And you can do that by just clicking where it says average. Click on the setting there to slow. And if you press, or your F4 doesn't work, if you go to your options and processing settings, you'll see that everything else should be the same, except that because usually ambient monitoring, you're monitoring for a long period of time. We change the sample rate to 48 kilohertz. And because we dropped that down, we can also drop the FFT down to 16,000. So you cut that in half also from where it was.
What was the first setting that you changed? I think I missed one. Sorry.
It's okay. We're going to do it right here, so you won't have to worry about it. I did it just on the fly from the main display, but we can do it right in here. So first thing is the sampling rate is 48,000.
Okay, got it.
And then 16,384 FFT, and then the speed / blocks. That's your averaging. That's basically your averaging setting. Set that to slow.
Okay, I had already done that.
Yeah, so that's a 1 second average rather than a 150 millisecond average, approximately. So everything else, your scaling should still be 1/3. That's right. The calibration should still be the same. These two guys are not used. I/O device. Now you want your input range to be the very minimum, plus or minus 156.
Okay, right.
And then you click OK. Okay. And then you go to Config, Save Configuration. And this is for ambient sound monitoring. Okay. And for this, you also can do data logging. So the data logging here, we click Log. What you change on it is you just change your intervals to be 1 second long. And that's because we're averaging for a slow average, that's about a second. So if you just take you take a sample every second, that's going to be, you don't need to oversample. That's going to be adequate.
If I change the data logging setting to be ambient, is it going to change it? Is it going to keep it at the ambient settings then when I try to use it against vibratory? Or is it going to be somehow saved with configuration?
This should be saved with configuration.
Okay, perfect.
So change that to 1.
Change it to 1, okay.
Yep, and click OK.
And then I see you have total power.
Yeah, total power, just like you did with the vibro.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then you click OK. And now you can go to config, save configuration, and save it as ambient sound. Because we didn't, you're going to resave it.
Okay. Moving over.
Yep. And I'll show you. If I open up my vibration one, and I look at my log, it's 0.1 seconds. And then you can check that. You can open up your vibration and see if it says 0.1 on the logging.
Maybe you can save for me on vibratory before.
Maybe we didn't save it.
I don't think we did because mine's back at 0 and back at peak level.
Okay, so that's right. You know what? Because I think we changed that after I was thinking that we needed to save something again in Vibro. So you've got your vibration one open now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so data logging, is it set to channel name, date, time?
Channel name. Okay, right. Okay.
Channel name, date, time. Make sure both boxes are checked down below.
Yep.
And then on the hydrophone, only select total power flat.
Okay.
Specific intervals and 0.1. And click OK. And do you have your total power box showing here?
No.
Okay, so you need to go to Utilities and select Total Power. And then adjust it how you want it to look. And then tell me, down on the bottom, does it say 96,000 hertz, 24 bits, mono, 32,768?
Yeah.
Okay. So now go to Config, Save Configuration, and then just override it. Click on your vibration one, and click Save.
Okay, good.
Okay. Now, you're going to want to go back to ambient. It's something we might have changed there. Click on log. What is the standard file name? Is it channel name, date, time, or is it just channel name?
It's just channel name.
You have to change that to name, date, time. Make sure both boxes are checked below.
Yep.
And go to CR1 Hydro, or whatever you call it. You go to your other tab. That should say 1 second and should be total power. Okay. Click OK. And go down, look at down at the bottom of the screen, is it 48,000? And FFT is 16,384?
Yeah.
Okay, so now go to your config, save configuration, and overwrite the ambient one. Okay, and then we'll do one more thing. We'll go back to vibration, the vibro monitoring. And I just want you to click on the log and see if you're set at 0.1 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can cancel that. Now what I recommend you doing is just go into File and Exit. Because that's going to then kind of set the default. So when you open up, it'll be open up to the vibration monitoring.
Okay.
And then you can reopen Spectre Plus and just confirm that.
Yep, we're there.
Great. Anybody else have any questions?
Looks like I'm still spinning on your screen.
Yeah, you are.
Weird. I must have something going on with my internet connection or something.
Yeah. Oh, are you trying to show your video?
Oh, maybe. You know what? No, I have the video turned off.
Oh, weird.
Actually, I'm not really sure because I might be looking at your screen. You might be at your screen.
Okay. Yeah, because ever since you came back, your voice has been a little bit more, it's been a little more garbled. Okay, nothing from Patrick. All right. Yeah, you're going to have a lot to play with in the field. That's right. Okay, so yeah, well, so that's the thing. You definitely, whenever you hit record on here, that's the raw data. So, oh, you're welcome. That's one thing I wasn't maybe really clear on either. Is that when you're in recorder mode, so when you record this is just it's the raw data. It has the calibration information in it as long as we selected what we said to select here, which is to include the calibration data in the file. So that's there, and that way, even if you've got something in the field and you think you have the answers, but then somebody wants you to go back and do another analysis just to double check, or they want more details. For instance, someone decides they want to look at the spectral values of all the impacts because there was some frequency that they learned could hurt some species. You can go back and do that. You'll have all the data to do that.
Okay. Yeah, good.
And that's why I say that you should just back everything up. And so backing it up is one thing if you can put it on the cloud or wherever. But if you do delete it from the computer, make sure you've got 2 backups.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anybody else, Don or Cody?
I was just going to ask on deploying the unit, like how thick is the cable and how sensitive is the probe as far as like gently lowering it into the water or being able to kind of throw it out so you don't get out of the barge or whatever?
Well, Sarah can tell you, the cable is pretty skinny. And the hydrophone itself it's tiny. and it's got, but it is ceramic transducers. So, you have to think of it as like a little teacup. Even though it's encapsulated in a polyurethane or a rubber, I'm not sure exactly what sensor or what Reson uses. But you do want to be careful lowering it into the water. You could toss it out, kind of. You can have a weight on this cable on the line, but if you toss it out and that hydrophone swings around and hits that weight, that could be a problem. So I think you want to be careful putting it in the water.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering what would be the best way to weight it down, something really thin and non-bulky, and it obviously doesn't need a lot of weight to keep it at 1 meter distance, probably. Right.
I mean, if there's a current, it's going to want to pull the whole cable, the whole line away. So you do want to have some weight to try to keep it vertical. But if you can just use a few fishing weights. There's the tapered, the oblong ones that you can just tape those to that soft line.
Right. Malleable lead wire weight that you can maybe wrap around the cord or something.
Yeah, that's right. You could do that. Yeah, that could work nicely. Yeah, you're welcome. Anything from Don? Okay, great. I'm glad you figured out how to type into here too, by the way.
All right. Well, it sounds like we don't have any more questions.
Okay. Well, yeah, you've got a lot to digest now. So you're deploying on, is it Wednesday or Friday?
It was originally Wednesday. Now it's been pushed again to Saturday. Actually, we've got a little extra time, which I might need.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh, and if you do want one of the new CR1A hydrophones, I had one person who had tentatively ordered one, but they canceled it. So that means I've got a transducer. I could build one. It still is going to take me about 3 or 4 weeks to have it built, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks, actually. But I could have one of those up with whatever cable length you need. So.
Okay, I'll mention that to Simon. I think at this point, just given that we're close to start on these projects, probably have hydrophone we have, but for future applications in with our marine group, it will probably need to get a better hydrophone at some point in the future. So I'm not sure if that's something he'll want to do right away, or just kind of see how it goes on this job, and and then see what kind of future work he has using again.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to let you know that there's that one cable available. I'll have more transducers available. In theory, I should have them around February 1st, and then it'll be about between 4 to 6 weeks to build the hydrophone. So we're looking at early to mid-March that I would have more.
Okay. Okay. Very good. What about troubleshooting from the field? Are you available for that by any chance?
Yeah, during the days I am. But you're probably not going to need it, but if you do, give me a call. And I'll respond as soon as I can.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'll try and put together some sort of a little manual based on the training today, so that everybody's kind of doing the same thing. But so probably, I would just expect maybe in the first couple of days if we have some issues that come up or whatever, because we will be on site several days before they start pile driving too, so we'll be able to see what the project site looks like and see where exactly we'll be deploying hydrophones and kind of practice a little bit before they actually start pile driving.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So during those couple of days, we might have a couple questions that come up.
Yeah, definitely feel free to call.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for doing this training too.
Yeah, you bet. We'll thanks. I'm glad you guys got the system. I'm glad that it worked out that Rezone had a hydrophone available for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pulled it off. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good luck.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.